Hey everyone, you are listening to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. This little banter is about a car ride long and features your hosts, JJ Parker and Melissa Albers. JJ owns a tech company and Melissa has been a coach working with influencers for the last 18 years.
Melissa, I've been listening to this podcast called My First Million.
Yeah, yep.
And it's like it's like a tech bro-y sort of podcast where they talk about like business ideas and tech and, you know, like cryptocurrency and all sorts of weird things. So obviously I love it.
Yeah. Obviously I haven't heard of it.
You've never heard of it. So they like they bring these guests on, right? Mm-hmm. From all different genres of business and tech.
Right.
But this week they had a skateboarder on.
Okay.
Right? His name's Rob Dyrdek.
Okay.
I'm probably butchering his last name. But so the skateboarder, he's been around a long time. And he has all these shows on MTV. Like one of his shows is called Ridiculousness.
Oh.
Where like they do ridiculous things, right? It's sort of like a stunt show, right? Where they like will do whatever, like jump off the side of buildings and flip cars and, you know,
gosh.
You know, like, that kind of show, right?
Yeah. MTV skateboarder dude kind of things.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
He had this other show called like, what do you call it? The Thrill Factory or something like that, where he had this like warehouse.
I've heard of that guy.
Jumps and skateboard ramps and stuff. So I was just thinking like, here is a skateboarder that does extreme stunts and gets famous for it, right? This is like the YouTube playbook or something. Well, they had him on, and it actually turned out to be super interesting.
Huh.
Because he's not just a skateboarder, he's actually a really savvy business guy.
Oh,
and he owns
that's
all
interesting.
These different companies. Like the company that produces all this content for MTV is a production company. Well, he recently sold this production company for a bunch of money because he built it up to be like a pretty large organization, right?
Yeah.
And so he said he has 17 businesses. Right?
Oh my gosh.
And that's like a lot to juggle.
Yes.
Right? Coming from a guy who doesn't have 17 businesses, but likes to get myself involved in a lot of things. Right?
Exactly.
So it was really interesting to hear, like, how is this guy juggling?
Yeah, exactly.
This much stuff. Right?
Yeah. Did he sound like he had ADHD? Like, was he like running off the top crazy?
He wasn't. He was pretty articulate. He was pretty calm.
Huh.
Right?
Yeah.
And he wasn't like he certainly wasn't like a stereotypical Southern California skateboard dude.
Yeah, right.
But he did kind of sound like a skateboarder.
Yeah.
So the first thing I thought, and the guys on the podcast thought, was like, well, okay, here's a guy. He's got a whole bunch of businesses, so he's just putting in 80 hours a week, working like crazy, like you said, ADHD, acting like an insane person.
Right.
Right. But he dropped this bomb on the podcast and said, when he got challenged on that, he goes, yeah, no, I only spend 30% of my time on work.
Wow.
Right? It's like, that is amazing. Like, how can he only spend 30% of his time on work?
Right.
And he had this phrase. He goes, the thing I'm working on now is human optimization.
So his goal is to be at like 15% work experience by December.
But he said he wants to spend 30% of his time on work, 30% of his time on family, 10% of the time on himself.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what else.
What?
But he was super into time tracking, right? Like, we've kind of come across these personalities.
Yes, we have.
To track every second of every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm out. But it's obviously working. So like, how did he do that? How did he explain it?
Well, so he explained that just for his time tracking stuff.
Yeah.
Is that he wanted to make sure he knew that being involved in so much stuff could get him sucked into work, right?
Yep.
So he wanted to make sure that he was making very specific boundaries around things, and being as efficient with his time as possible. So it's just like a time blocking technique.
Yeah, right.
And he wanted to make sure he was like giving enough time to his family, which was really important to him. So
yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, it's great that he is so like prudent about that. Like a lot of us aren't that thoughtful, right?
Right.
Or
I don't think any of us are. Yeah,
we think that, but we don't actually can't put that into like a system to operate within, right?
Or if we do, it feels too hard, and it lasts kind of like when you're going to lose a 10-pound diet in a month. It's like you get, that sounds like a good idea, but in theory, it sounds like a great idea, but in practice, it feels not possible.
Yeah, or maybe you can do it for a little bit, but it's hard to sustain. Right?
Yeah, right.
So, so that is all fascinating to me. But he said one thing that I thought was super interesting. When he was talking about time, he goes, people spend their time doing 3 things. Experiencing, creating, or problem solving.
Experiencing, creating, problem solving.
Yep.
So that's interesting. You and I have talked about all 3 of those things.
Right. And I thought that was really interesting to just put it into such a simple frame. It's like, what are the things in my day that I'm just doing because I want to experience them, or I want unexperience, right? Or I maybe just am experiencing.
Yeah, that's where I go right there, is that most people unaware just experience their lives as though they are a recipient of all these things happening.
Yeah, like they're a TV show that they're watching.
Yes, like stuff happens to me all the time. Like I'm just like, I was having this great day, and then these 8 things happened, and I wasn't having a great day. Like everything happens all the time to me. That kind of thing.
Like, you're passive in it.
Yeah, and reactionary. I think when he uses that phrase, experiencing, that's like where I go.
That's where you go.
Yeah. But so did he have any other way of like, did he summarize any of this further before you and I dive in? Because I have a bunch of thoughts about this.
He just pretty much dropped that and moved on. And I was like, wait, I want to stop and talk about that more.
That is really interesting. Yeah.
Yep.
What was it? What did you think? What were your thoughts about that? You found it interesting because
about those 3 points.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting just because it was fairly simple, and to me it was like I could really quickly bucket the things that I do into those, especially experiencing and creating. And then I really liked having problem solving being a separate activity.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder. Yeah,
for me, experiencing where I went with that a little bit was more like consuming. Right, I feel like we spend a lot of our time just like consuming things.
Oh, interesting.
Like almost like just entertaining ourselves for
yes, we've
purpose,
talked about that. Yep.
Right.
Right.
I kind of like this phrase that like sometimes we're like entertaining ourselves to death.
Yeah.
Which just means like we're not actually doing anything.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Just like passing the time for
scrolling for hours on Instagram or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And sometimes you might need that break. I'm not trying to be critical of that or judging of that, but it's just for me it's an observation, right? Like when am I just in this mode where I'm just consuming or just taking things in with no specific purpose?
Yeah. I honestly feel like most of the time, just in my coaching career, I feel like most people spend most of their time either in experiencing or problem solving. Like I don't think a lot of people spend time creating. I really don't. Even being a very, we're all creative beings. We are all creative beings. But somehow I feel like that takes a back seat. I wish that guy would have used how he said he spends 30% of his time on work. I wish that guy would have said what percentage of time he spent on these three things. Like from his perspective, that would have been super interesting because I think, like we talk all the time about becoming more aware of ourselves. And so I'm taking this course right now. It's pretty interesting. It's called Duality. And I'm just in the first week of the lessons. And the whole thing is about being aware of your focus points, right? And I think that this goes into just falling into experience. Like even like you and I are sitting here right now having this conversation, but are we really 100% focused on the task, on us with each other talking? Where is our awareness? And if we're not really aware, we can be sort of creating this conversation, but also like, oh, I'm looking out the window. I'm holding my dog. I'm thinking what I'm going to do right after after we hang up from this podcast. Like I'm going to be doing all these things. And then at 4:00 so that's what I mean. It's like, I think we split our energies so much that, and those energies while split are all in the mode of experiencing, not creating. So that's an interesting thing for me, right?
Yeah, split energy is certainly that. Like you can they start talking about like are you able to multitask?
Yeah, the answer is no. Even us.
If you want to use a Harry Potter analogy, it's like how many Horcruxes can you actually split your soul into? Let's be real. Seven's too many.
I was just 7's too many. 6 though. 6 might be my high end limit. So
the third thing the problem solving part of this little triad.
Yeah.
That's the one that I thought was especially interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because you and I have talked about this before. You actually mention it all the time. And I think I'm starting to appreciate it much, much more and be way more mindful of it, is that you always say that your mind is a great tool.
Yes.
And a terrible master.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, precisely.
So I'm listening.
Yes.
I'm paying attention.
So exciting.
But the idea that like we spend time problem solving is good, right? I mean, this is part of like our human superpower compared to like all the rest of the animals on the planet, right?
Right.
That we're actually really good at problem solving. Problem solving, though, on overdrive causes all sorts of trouble.
Yep. And I think, again, it's a reactive state. Yeah.
And I like the idea that that problem solving as an activity would be called out as a separate thing. Like, know when you're doing this particular thing and make sure that you're being mindful of how much of your like time it's occupying. Yeah, precisely. And like, as we talk about problem solving in the same vein as we talk about creating, like how many times, like you and I were talking about this and you were saying, sometimes like creating feels the same as problem solving. Like it can, because like, if you think about when teams come together to build a marketing plan or teams come together to kick off a new product or whatever, you're doing an act of creating, but you're also problem solving against not creating things that have already been done before, or not creating something that won't work because here's all the problems that could get in the way. So, I mean, it's kind of like, that's a slippery slope for me, those two pieces, when you put them together like that. Yeah. Well, we've talked about it before, but one of my fundamental creativity hacks is limitation. Right? So in order to become more creative, put limits around the thing you're trying to do, then your brain can do this problem solving part, which is like part of its superpower. So to me, that like art from limitation phrase that I use all the time, that's trying to engage that problem solving part of our brain.
Yeah.
and apply it in a really good way.
Yeah. So, like, let's just bring this back to awareness. Like, as you and I are talking about these, these experiencing, creating, and problem solving as the way humans spend all of their time. How do you perceive self-awareness comes into play with those three things? Does it impact them? Not at all. If so, how? Like, what do you think?
Well, if we're proclaiming, I'm not sure if we are actually proclaiming.
Yeah,
if we're
yeah,
proclaiming that life is experiencing, creating, or problem solving, like you're doing one of those three things at any given time,
Mm-hmm.
the self-awareness comes in simply to know which one of those you're actually doing, because
that's interesting.
Because it's hard to notice,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like until you
Mm-hmm.
sit and think about maybe like a framework of these three things and try to bucket your activities and your thoughts and your emotions into one of those three things.
Yeah.
Then you're just running around on autopilot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in that reactive state.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So you came from the angle of you can have self-awareness in all three of those things at any given time. It just helps if you are aware of which one you're in. That's an interesting perspective. Mm-hmm. I hadn't thought about that, because where I went with it was the more self-aware you are, the more you can change the percentage of time that you're in each one of these things. Like if that guy spends 30% of his time on work and he has 17 companies, wow, like he must be exceptionally good at like time blocking and recognizing in his own awareness when he's going to do stuff, but how he does it too to make it really effective.
Yeah, I'm kind of jealous.
I know. But I think like, I feel like, I think that I really like what he said. I think that it's absolutely true. Like if we were to take on his assumption as gospel and we too believe that, I do think though that we have greater potential to create more, having more awareness, because, like how many times have you gotten up in the morning and you said, oh, okay, it's going to be a great day. Like, here's what I got going. I'm going to make this a really productive day. I have this little break and I'm going to do this. And we think like this, right? As we're laying in bed before we even hit the ground. And then we jump out onto the floor and we step on a Lego. I don't anymore, but let's say you do. And it hurts like a mother. And you stumble into the bathroom and you realize, damn it, I'm out of toothpaste. I forgot to get more toothpaste. And now I'm going to have to spend 10 minutes trying to squeeze the last little bit out of this stupid, why do they design them like that anyway, metal-y type of tubes. And so your day, while you had such great intention of creating something, you have suddenly jumped into the experience of your day, unaware. Like you're allowing all these things to impact your awareness. And I think you kind of leave your body. I think you kind of leave your mental peace and you just become into this experiential flow. Oh, great. Now I bet they won't have my coffee at Quick Trip. Oh, great. I bet they won't. Right. So I just think that we start being very mindful and wanting to create, like in the morning is our best time actually, because we are free and clear. The slate's clean. There's no more momentum from what happened yesterday, unless you didn't sleep well and you didn't, whatever. But generally speaking, that's when you wake up in the day and that is your highest probability of being able to create. But unaware, so many things knock us off our center and knock us right out of that authenticity and that authentic creation, that we suddenly become very experiential and unaware of all those great ideas and intentions and emotions that we had even like 6 minutes prior. It happens that fast.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like an interesting way to look at it. I was just thinking if that happened, then you could take the Legos you stepped on and make some sort of like toothpaste tube squeezer tool, and then just like turn your whole day around.
Boom. Job solved. Done. Moving on. So I don't know.
It is easy. You're right. It is easy to get into that mindset that the world that the world is happening to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Right?
through little simple things, we don't realize how quickly we jump there.
Yeah. And then when you're talking about creating, you're talking about, creating a different, like a reality that makes you happier, right?
Precisely.
Which we've talked about is all about your own mindset and your own internals. So,
yeah.
and how you're responding or how you're reacting.
Yeah. I mean,
to your environment.
Yeah, exactly. And so like we use the word creating like in some big global big thing, right? Like we're going to create, but actually every moment we're creating every single moment. We're either aware that we are or we're not. And if we are more passive, then we think we're experiencing every moment as though we didn't have anything to do with it and it just was sprung upon us. And even down to conversations that we have with people, interactions that we have with people, how we park our car, where we park our car, like everything we're creating, right? Like, and we've gone into this, but I don't think that we're aware. So when we are unaware, that opportunity of creation ends up feeling and being more experiential. So like, I don't know if I'm articulating that well, but it's just like, if I'm going to have a coaching conversation with someone and I know that in 6 minutes, I'm going to hop on the call. And if I push out the energy of, oh, sometimes this person can be really tough, or, that person is really, really up and down. And I feel like I have to sort of, what do I need to do to make this call good, to be helpful? So if I put forth all of this thinking and I'm using this mind, but the mind is a master in that moment telling me, oh, it's going to be like this, then I'm ending up experiencing something that maybe isn't that at all. Maybe I've actually now created it that way because the way I was thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so this idea that are we experiencing, creating, or problem solving is really, again, about making sure you're being mindful of your intention.
Yeah. And at the simplest place, not complicated, not really hard, just what is your intention? Yeah, I really like that. Because if you're focusing even just a little bit on that, your awareness is increasing every day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it's using these three things, it's not like you're going to be in the creating mode all the time.
No,
right?
No, you just couldn't be, I don't think.
I don't think. And forth.
Yeah.
Maybe you could, but you'd have to be like a meditating monk, meditating 24 hours a day or something.
It's funny.
Keep your mind that focused.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you, yes, exactly right. Like right here. So I told you I was taking this new course. Well, the very first activity is to bring all of your awareness. So just try this right now. It's like crazy to bring all of your awareness to just behind your eyes. Just look off someplace, sort of. You can even look at me or whatever. But bring all of your awareness to right behind your eyes. You can almost feel like a physical sensation when you do that. Yeah. And you realize when you're focusing to do that, you're not thinking about 75 things. You're actually really thinking about trying to bring your awareness to right behind your eyes. And the meditation was a 5-minute meditation. I made it 2 seconds. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not doing that. Am I doing it right? This can't be right. Is this supposed to feel like this? It's crazy how much we are split into multiple activities all the time. And it starts with that piece and how we feel. Our thoughts and our feelings are where everything starts. But even in that little thing, I was like, I can't even do that right now. Why? Well, am I bad? Why can't I do that? Right? Boom, there goes the judgment.
Well, cool. This was fun to explore. I just these little frameworks, these little ideas and thoughts that can help us, build our own awareness. Are always useful, and it's fun to chat with other people about and explore.
And people might be interested in checking out that podcast that you mentioned. So, do you want to just say the name again and who it was?
Yes. So. Well, it's My First Million.
Yeah.
It's these two tech guys that I mean, frankly, I almost don't want to promo their podcast. Hopefully they're not going to listen to ours. If you're in the tech industry and you're super into tech business, you should totally check it out because I love it.
Yeah.
If you're into anything else, then you're gonna think these guys are kind of odd.
Yeah, but that's what makes the world go round. That's why there's so many fun podcasts out there, and people probably say the same thing about us. Well, if you're into self-awareness, you could listen to them. If you're not, you're going to think those two are real goofballs.
Right.
That's okay.
And then their guest was Rob Dyrdek, and he's a skateboarder.
That is cool.
The other fun thing is just like, don't judge a book by its cover, you know?
Yeah.
He's like a very deep, articulate, kind of a wise person.
Yeah.
In the wrapper of a, skateboarder.
Yeah.
Like, hoodie and jeans.
Yeah, I love it. That's such a fun story. We hope that you've enjoyed today's episode. Our mission is to help people become happier and more effective by gaining insight into their own thoughts and feelings. We'd love your support. First, share this podcast with anyone you think might enjoy it. Second, leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast site. This helps others discover the podcast so we can reach more people. And third, sign up for our newsletter at theselfawarenessjourney.com. This will help us communicate better with you and build our community. Thank you so much for joining us in the Self-Awareness Journey. We'll see you next week.